Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Shared Housing Alliance. I am Kirsten Vanderjack, and I have co host Julie on today. Hey, Julie, how are you today?
Good.
So, I'm really happy to talk about this subject with you in particular. I always love getting your, being an investor and being a police officer. I think that you bring so much to the table. So, my question today and the discussion I want to have is around why do people wait until the last minute? I mean, literally, we have people who just today are contacting us and they want to move in on Friday, which is in 48 hours.
Well, that's an interesting situation, right? Because a lot of times when you're on patrol and you're working with the, people that are calling for help, it's the last, ditch effort per se, or it's an emergency, right? So, a lot of times you have to put yourself a little bit in someone else's shoes and say what exactly has been going on. And I think a lot of times these people, for lack of a better analogy, is they bury their heads in the sand thinking that they're not going to turn into that situation. They think or hope that either the eviction doesn't go through, they hope that whatever their buddy is going to take them in, and they turn out to be in a situation where it's like, oh no, it snowed here in the Midwest on Halloween. Now it's cold and people are you know forced to come up with a plan B or plan C that they didn't even want to think about.
Yeah, I would agree that they're hoping things will be different. And yet, it seems like it's a pattern and a cycle of them doing this, right?
and and
Because
and a lot of times the mental illness, the alcohol, they partake in those items, or they have other things going on that they kind of cannot think about that, or they can do something else for the time being, but they're not actually taking steps to secure somewhere else to go if their housing eviction actually does go through, or they have something where they think that it's going to happen but they don't come up with another plan. And that's a hard thing, because sometimes I had to have heart to hearts with people and be like, hey, I know you really want to go to this, shelter, or hey, I know you really want to go to this detox, but if that doesn't work out, like, you can't stay here. Like, we can't have you laying here in the lobby at the police department. So and to them, that's better than being outside, right? But it doesn't solve the actual problem. So it's frustrating as landlords and as business owners when you have people that like, you spend a lot of your time organizing, planning, budgeting, and doing all these things to make sure that you don't end up in a situation where it's up plan B very quickly and I don't have it. But I think that they have a track record, as you'd say, of that happening, and that's one of the many reasons that they're in the situations that they're in.
yeah, I just, I always come from a place of how do we fix this? Or in the Shared Housing Alliance, I think it's more how do we accept this as just the way that it is and meeting those people where they're at? So if we are planners and investors who are doing these kinds of things ahead of time, I personally, I do wrestle with like, oh, this is hard to on the fly constantly have people. It's different than my personal mentality, right? Because I am a planner, like you said. And so I think just acknowledging, hey, this is how this shared housing and halfway housing and this is how it just works, and that's okay. We have to be okay with that, because I will tell you, they want to move in tomorrow, right? Like that's like a normal thing in shared housing is, and that's not coming even from a police relationship or a social worker relationship. That's just people who contact us through any other method like Craigslist, or if we don't normally do Facebook ads, but I know some other people do. And so That's what I wanted to talk about today is this is just par for the course in this industry and being okay with it. Like, okay, we're not going to be able to move you in right now this second, unless, of course, we're working with a police officer or a social worker and they know who you are and they can basically say, this person is not a danger to the other people in your house.
Well, and I was gonna mention that, the website to allow people to check what is available, I think will cut down on a little bit of that because if in fact somebody does go on there and looks up something and sees that there is an available room, that their urgency might be tamed a little bit and fall within the guidelines of each person's house, that they apply and get the room, but that they know that they can only, take so many hours before they've gotta they can get, in or get their paperwork in or get whatever they need in, short of, like you said, having somebody vouching for their criminal history and for their current situation, that they would be placed immediately. I think that that will help with the inability to, like you said on another talk that we had, that people stand in line for hours waiting to see if they have something. And I
Yeah,
think that that will help that situation too, because now they spend all that time waiting for that particular one that they wanted to go to find out that that's not going to happen. Now they're coming to you and saying, I need to move in tomorrow, when they spent 2 days trying to get in the other place. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, that's
the,
a really interesting point, actually, that we should talk about right now. So it's almost like people who are in vulnerable situations, if they are dealing with public shelters or even some type of recovery housing, and their policy is, hey, you have to check with us every day to see if we have a bed. It's like that type of business model to help vulnerable people conditions them to wait every single day until the last minute. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, actually, because that's what they're already conditioned to do, is like call every day and check and see if we have a bed available, right? Or just show up and see if you can get a bed today because you don't have anywhere to go today. And so in shared housing, I think it's a little bit different than that. For most of the operators, we're saying, no, you have to at least give us 48 hours, really, so that way you can fill out an application. And, we don't want to either take you in on the drop of a hat, but we also don't want to push you out 7 days. It's kind of something in between where it's obviously not a regular rental where normally you apply and you have to wait a week or two to move in, or even 30 days. So it's kind of this in between that we, as people who operate shared housing and taking in vulnerable people out of homelessness or even out of jail or out of recovery, because I know the people who I'm familiar with that have come out of the jail system, they actually think that their probation officers working on it, or someone in some part of the government is helping them get some kind of housing when they leave jail. And they are limited in jail as to what kind of communication they can have and how much communication they can have with, the outside world. And so they're just like hoping that the day that they get released is actually the day that they're going to get released, that something doesn't like crop up, either COVID related or a fight or something. And then did their PO or somebody like help them get some housing? It seemed like they almost don't know until the last minute either.
yeah, I think that is a fluid situation, right? I mean, that is something where it could change. There are factors that, are talked about, but sometimes they're not really addressed until the last second. And that's, oh, we're overcrowded, we need to get rid of people, like, okay, let's
Yeah.
just let this guy out early. And I get that. I mean, that's an extra bologna sandwich that they don't have to give out, and they don't really have the ability to, like, as a detective, I don't always have the ability to drop everything and start on the new case and forget the other 15 I have. So it's, as a probation officer, it's the same situation. You can't just drop. You've already been working a week on trying to get this guy a place, and he's been waiting patiently or whatever, and sleeping on park benches and what have you. So I think the solution that we're proposing and we're offering is a good solution to that kind of black hole in the housing, that like you said, you either take 30 days to try to get in and you get, the lease is signed for a year, or you get a more affordable sharing of a room with your own bed, but you might have to wait a day or two. And I think that's where you said earlier, we need to just accept the fact that our most often situation is going to be someone else's emergency, and that if we can keep our policies in place, and we can keep our restrictions so that we are screening correctly and we're doing those things, that we don't feel rushed by other people, that we will have a better application process.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we are right around the 11-minute mark. So I don't have anything else on the topic right now. Do you have anything that you'd like to add, Julie?
No, I mean, we can talk about the financial aspect of this problem, obviously, because like you said, that's a lot of resources and things that people kind of, waste their time with. But that's where I suggest that people go over to the Normalized Money Show and listen up on how to, if you are in these situations, you are going to need, to have that better credit score, that better thing, and you can get that as part of Katie's House Foundation. So if they like what we talk about, if they could like and subscribe to our channel, they can get more information. And we also have the website, which is scrolling on the bottom of the screen. And thanks for the good discussion this morning, Kirsten.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for the information, and we'll talk with you next week. Have a great week.
Thanks.